Welcome.
Pay attention, people.
Welcome, the man. You're fine. The man, the myth, the hat, Greg Shaker. Thanks for joining us today, Greg.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm extraordinarily happy to be here.
Well, I mean, for those who don't know you, can you just talk generally, just a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you bet, how long you've been betting, that kind of thing?
Well, I was born in a small town in Mississippi, in the Mississippi Delta. I grew up and I started betting. Actually, my first bet was in Sunday school during the NFL season. That was, I guess I probably was like 12 or 13 years old at that time. And then we grew up. I went to play college golf, hurt my back, and at that point, I had really thought that I was going to be a PGA golfer. I really didn't want to have a regular job. So I dove into sports betting. I had saved up some money because I had been a pretty good investor in my early 20s, and met a couple of people in a couple of different places, and actually formed, I guess, what you might call about a three-team betting group. And we worked hard together. I'm actually working with a couple of different people now, and we all have certain things that we do that make us successful. And we'll talk more about that as we go further into this. I live in Memphis, and I love it. I'm a big Ole Miss Rebel fan. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, let's change the pace a little bit now. We've talked about Greg Shaker, the person now, Greg Shaker, the baseball man. Let's say that I'm Vin Scully and I'm getting ready to open the season and Greg Shaker is going to go out and throw the first pitch. If I'm describing Greg Shaker as the pitcher on the mound in baseball season, what am I talking about? What are your keys to beating the sport?
Well, I guess you would call non-traditional in a lot of ways. But I do use a lot of stats. I would have to compare myself to Clayton Kershaw because, like I tell everybody, win or lose, we had the right side. We had the right total based on the info that we had. I see Clayton Kershaw as somebody that can carve up a hitter. We try to carve up these stats and make them make sense, and we do it in a way that is probably not the same way that most people do it. So I don't know who I'd compare that to as far as a pitcher, but it's just a little bit different tilt on the way we do things. We do use a little bit of sabremetrics, even though I'm not even really sure what sabremetrics is, but I'm sure that we probably have developed a few situations and systems that do go along with the sabremetric way of doing things.
Well, for someone who's hearing this now for the first time and is saying, okay, first game is Sunday night, full board on Monday, in the off season, where are those stats coming from? Like, what are some of your processes to get ready for the openers? What are some of your favorite sources?
Okay, we use database quite a bit. I am very, very strong on database, especially with baseball, because there's just so much information out there. If you can look at it the right way, you can be successful. So what we really do, the only thing, we have a database already in place. The only thing we're really looking at is maybe new pitchers that are coming up from the minor leagues. We're looking at different teams that where their bullpens have changed. We're looking at pitchers that did well over the last half of last season, might come into the first part of the season they have discovered something about their game that might carry over. And we're also looking at specifically pitchers during spring training, because you can learn a lot. Really not much you can learn about a batter during spring training, but you can learn a lot about a pitcher comparatively to maybe previous spring training stats he has had. So that's really what we're doing. We just really update the database.
So it sounds like if you're paying that much attention to the spring training performances, you sound like the type of guy that will be ready to bet on opening day. Is that a big part of your process? On opening day, are you ready to step in, or is it a learning experience as the players work their way into shape?
Well, pretty much both, Dave. I mean, we are ready to bet, and we are going to have a pretty high volume in April. Hopefully it'll be a better April this year than last year. We actually did not have a good April last year, but the rest of the season was very good. If we can have a good April, which we generally do, we're going to have a really, really nice season. But, yeah, we're ready to go. I mean, in fact, some of the stuff that we follow is April-related, early season related. Some pitchers are very good out of the gate, and some pitchers are not. Some pitchers do very well at certain venues, so we'll be looking at venues on opening day, and a few other things as well. So, yeah, we'll be ready to go.
So it sounds like with that kind of confidence, too, it means that from a money management standpoint, you're probably ready to be betting normal units. So let's talk about that a little bit. Because it's a long season compared to the other sports, how do you compare the baseball bet size to what you might be doing in football or basketball?
There is absolutely no difference. First of all, I recommend, and what I do is that most of our bets are going to be 2% bankroll bets.
Close.
We are going to have some 3% bankroll bets, and that's it. So I don't believe that any single bet. I'm not really a math guy, but I don't believe that any single bet can be twice as good as another. So basically, that's why I do 2% and 3%. You can do the same percentage if you feel better about 1 and 1.5%, which would be exactly the same thing. But yeah, we look at one bet being maybe about 50% better than another one. As far as volume goes, it's probably not. It's going to be higher in the beginning, but not that much higher. We might, if you had to put an average on it, probably looking at about 3, maybe 4 plays a day during April, May. We'll slack off a little bit less than that in June, and kind of be about the same through August. September will be very, very low volume.
I wanted to get Jessica to actually ring a bell when you talked about that 50%, but the problem is I'm sitting in her office, and if she rang it, it would be really loud in my ear. But I remember writing a point-blank column back before football season started saying that that's the ratio that I've been using, for a couple of decades now, that there's a base unit, and I just can't find anything in any sport that would increase more than 50%. So it is that, a 2 to 3 ratio, with 2s being the overwhelming majority, and then some get up to 3. If we can get listeners to be comfortable with that, because again, it's not get rich quick, but there is a process of grinding out there. If you set your bet ratios that way, over time it becomes comfortable. You're not overstepping for any one particular situation, and you keep yourself in play. And that's a big thing in baseball. It's going to be a long grind. You want to make sure you're managing your money so that you stay in play as those edges develop. And before we get to the particular edges, when Monday begins, let's talk about a day in the life of Greg Shaker as a bettor. One is, will you be sitting and watching many of the games, or is it bringing the box scores in as they come? And 2, when you have that information, are you firing early? Are you firing later in the day? What does a day in the life look like once the games begin next week?
That is a very, very good question. First of all, yeah, we fire early and we fire late. Based on where we think the betting line will be, I don't believe there's enough talk about when to play and how important it is to get as close to or the best number that you can get. I mean, it's a money line sport. Although now we do probably do about 60% totals, but on a side bet. But even totals have, they move up and down as well with the big. If you can get in at the best number or the near best number, you're going to save yourself a lot of money. You're going to make a lot more money. So we try to determine based on what we think the market's going to do, whether to fire early or late or somewhere in between. And it's important to know that every bet is a bet at some number. Every one. You know, if I'm getting, if we think there's a 50% chance that team A is going to beat team B, and we're getting plus 150, we're going to play it. Simple as that. There are going to be days when we may have no play. There'll be days when we have 7. We're not going to play. Unfortunately, I think what a lot of bettors do is they determine from the get-go that I'm going to have 3 bets today. That way they're leaving off probably some good opportunities some days, and some days they're betting stuff that's not going to win. It's not plus EV, and just not the way to do it.
We should actually be making some plaques out of this or some posters to distribute, because now you're getting into the real art of the professional bettor against the way that most people begin betting. And invariably, unless someone comes from a math background first and transitions to sports, most people start out predicting games. Saying, I think this team will win this game. Whereas a professional thinking, well, any team can win any game. What are the numbers in play? So when you say that every game is bettable, that is so very, very true. And what you want people to transition into is that mindset, not waking up thinking the Reds are going to win today, I'm going to bet the Reds, because you may be betting them at a bad number. The markets may have already anticipated the Reds are going to win. But instead, if you think, okay, I could bet any of these games today, let me find where the edges are before I make my bet. That's a good mindset to get into. I get asked a lot of times to do seminars and other things, and people say, what's the key to predicting sports? I say, you know what? I don't know anyone in my lifetime who was ever any good at predicting sports. But I know people who are better at beating the market than others. Because, you know, if the line did not exist, if we all just sat down and had to predict the outcome of events, and people said, boy, the standard deviation looks pretty high, we might look bad at times. It's the line that keeps us in play. So let's delve into this a little bit. You said that about 60% of the plays are going to be totals. Is it evenly split between overs and unders, or inside of that 60? Is there a direction you find bigger edges in?
Well, you know, if I had to put a number on it, I think that I probably play more overs, but I really haven't even thought about it. There are certain ballparks that at a certain number, under most every situation, I'm going to play an over or an under. That's just the way it is. So certain ballparks offer are ballpark friendly to pitchers, ballpark friendly to hitters. You can get a certain number, and you know you're going to play it. We try to determine what the pitchers are going to do based on their current situation. And I know we're going to talk more about pitchers, but basically pitchers, it's the way that lines are set. Pitchers, you know, betting lines are based on pitchers. They're also based on a couple of things, really, I guess, or maybe 3 things. The quality of the team, the quality of the starting pitcher, and where that team is right now, how well they are playing. That is the way that most people actually handicap games as well. Same way that lines makers make the lines. That's what we're trying to get away from. If you're betting based on what the line makers are doing, then you're doing exactly what they want you to do. So we're trying to find some edges inside the edge, and we're looking deeper into the stats. There's like I say all the time, instead of looking at the stats, look into the stats. Just because a pitcher has an overall poor performance in his last 3 games doesn't mean that he pitched badly in either of the games. In fact, he could have had 2 quality starts and then given up a grand slam at Coors Field. That happens. So it's better to look at each individual's performance inside each individual box score than just the final score, his final ERA, his final WHIP. So that's what we try to do.
So when you look to those box scores, you're making some good points that I think are going to be valuable to people plugged in. What are those particular dynamics from each box score? So let's say Greg Shaker's got a box score in front of him. Where are the eyes going first?
Well, the eyes are going toward the strikeouts versus walks, which I call the KBB ratio. I don't know if that's the correct term. Also look at where the pitcher is trending. I think that's the most important thing. We have, we have ground ball pitchers, we have fly ball pitchers, and we have pitchers that have great control, some that do not. But we're trying to determine whether or not the norm for that pitcher is trending up or trending down. And if it's trending down, that likely means that he is suffering from either some sort of physical injury or a sore arm, and it's time to play against him. If he's trending up and his overall pitch count is down, then it's time to fire on this guy because he's at his optimum level. So we're just trying to determine whether a pitcher is likely to have a good game or likely maybe not to have a good game, and that's a valuable tool to use when determining who's going to win a game, and also determining when a total is going to go over or under.
This is going to be something that's so valuable for the viewers because over the course of the summer, this is what you're going to get from pregame from people like Greg Shaker. If you read the point blank column each day, we're going to delve into these because one of the things that Greg was talking about, we'll talk about a lot over the course of the summer, and you're going to see SWS percentage. And people say, well, what is that? It's swinging strike percentage. One of these great statistics that for whatever reason just wasn't commonly available until now, but the ability to make a hitter swing and miss a pitch doesn't get too much better than that because if you don't hit the ball's not going anywhere. When you get these swings, when you see a pitcher have a decline in that category, when he's not getting the ball by the hitters, that means there may be a little bit of a problem. So that's one of the tip-offs when you look at that time because Greg's talking a lot about market timing, anticipating a guy either being better or weaker than the market out there thinks he is. That brings a lot of stats into play. And if that's given into play, I think, Jessica, I need to hear your voice here for a minute.
Well, guys, we already did one poll where we asked you what your favorite kind of baseball bet was, and it was pretty evenly split between sides and totals, but there were a couple that liked first 5 innings. None of you like to bet the run line, it appears. But now we're going to launch another one, which is where do you go for baseball statistics? Since there's so much information out there, and both Dave and Greg have pointed out how important it is, curious to hear from you guys as baseball fans and baseball bettors where you go to get your information. So click your answer on that poll, and I'll chime in with the answers on that one in a few minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the great things about baseball is there is such a ridiculous amount of information out there. But unlike the other sports where you have it targeted to the Vegas outcome of the game, which is that point spread, we don't see enough people charting from a Vegas perspective. And one of the things that I will do in-house that you don't see out there a lot is the simple money chart. And that's the idea that, okay, Clayton Kershaw might be 20-8, but what would have happened if you bet on Clayton Kershaw every one of those games? And when I say 20-8, this is something that I'm going to preface for what you'll read in the column. I may never list the pitcher's record a single time. It will always be the record of the team when that pitcher has started. So if I say Kershaw 20-8, that means the Dodgers are 20-8. But then there's the money aspect of that. And I know, Greg, you talk about keeping your own database. Is charting the market a part of that database? So that are you charting the price on every one of Kershaw's game to get that market equation into your thinking?
Well, no, we do. That's not a bad idea. Don't get me wrong. But no, that's not what we do. We actually chart each individual pitcher and what they're doing, as well as the bullpens. We chart bullpen pitchers as well. But we chart those basically as mid relievers and the closer. We do that for each team. Pitchers have certain tendencies. Number one, a pitcher, there are some pitchers who just absolutely hate Coors Field. I don't know anybody that loves Coors Field anyway, but some of them just can't do it. And they're a fly ball because they're a fly ball pitcher. If you're a fly ball pitcher and you're going to Coors, you're in trouble. So you know, we're not, if we have a strong fly ball pitcher, and I mean, you know, you can even go, although we do our own, but you can go to like team rankings, for instance, and find the top, say, maybe 50 or 70 fly ball pitchers. They actually rank them. Well, if you got a fly ball pitcher going to Coors, then, you know, there's at least the opportunity to look toward the over in that situation. There are some pitchers that a high pitch count, off of a high pitch count, doesn't bother them at all. And, you know, this would be probably considered what we call the rubber arm guys. Generally speaking, a power pitcher who does a lot of strikeouts is going to have more high-pitch games because he's having to throw more often because he's striking out a lot of people. He's also getting a lot of foul balls on the third strike. And, you know, a good example of that would be, let me look at my chart. Strasburg for the Nationals. He throws a lot of pitches, but he has great games during the year. But when he has a great game, generally his next outing is not that good, and that's a tendency that we will look at again this year. I've got some statistics here. I actually try to these down off the database. I don't do the database, by the way. So I have somebody else that does it for me. But Strasburg is the last 11 games that he has double-digit strikeouts or more. He has, in the following game, he is 2-9, and that's his actual. That's a team record, and we do the same thing that you do, David. That's a team record, not his record. His team is 2-9. His personal ERA is 6.5, and his WHIP about 1.7. So he puts together a good game, but his next game, if he's double-digiting strikeouts and therefore probably most likely at 110 to 120 pitches, he doesn't do that well. You know, we have a database of our top 20 pitchers that are not good high pitch count games, and we look strongly at betting against these people the following game. We also look strongly toward the over.
And what you really like about that, of course, is when Strasburg has the high strikeout game, most of the markets want to bet on him the next time. Think, oh, he's on his game. He was at peak. And there's even a flip-flop inside of there. Now, it's a little harder to chart from a database standpoint, but it's when the pitcher has the terrible game and gets knocked out early. Now, the markets want to go against him the next time, but you know what? Sometimes if you're going to go out and make 30 or 35 starts, getting knocked out and only throwing 60 or 65 pitches isn't bad. It makes you fresher the next time out. But let's talk about these databases a little bit, because we just got a good question that came in on the forum, and it's about Arlington and changes in that ballpark, altering the dimensions to make it maybe a little more pitching-oriented. This has been a good story because a couple of years ago, there was a big change made in Arlington. When that ballpark was first built, you had to actually reverse the wind patterns. There's a wind tunnel in Arlington. It comes in from right center. It comes in pretty strong just about every night. Well, what they had is they had a fully enclosed backdrop behind the plate. And what happened is that wind blowing in from right center went into that backdrop and turned itself around. The in wind was actually an out wind because of that. They opened that area up. The ballpark started playing a little bit differently. Now they've changed the dimensions again. When that happens, Greg, do you completely change the database? Do you start all over again with the ballpark? Do you maybe wait the past seasons a little bit less? What will your procedures be?
That's exactly what we do, and that's exactly what we did with Arlington. Or, you know, in some cases, I think that they moved the fence to Petco. Didn't really change a whole lot, but it did change something. So it's one of those, to me, it's one of those wait and see. You know, stay away from that for a while and see where we are. You know, get enough of a volume of games played at Arlington to determine whether or not, you know, you can continue forward or whether you drop it or whether it's going to be reversed. And in this case, I mean, you're absolutely right. Arlington used to be, well, you used to compare Coors Field with Arlington, but now you can't do it.
And I think that's something important.
Or at least with the wind is blowing out. because the wind blowing out is really not a big advantage, because that backdrop actually stops the wind as well. So when you have a game that's wind blowing out, often it's not gonna affect the ball nearly as much as at most parts.
Yeah, let's talk about some of these database aspects, because one of the things we will be emphasizing to readers, I think the first part of the season, is be careful with the numbers you see, because a lot of the major sites out there, they look good. ESPN's baseball looks good. Yahoo's looks good. So what's going to happen is you're going to look up a pitcher, and it's going to say, well, here is his career record at the ballpark in Arlington, or here's his career record against the Texas Rangers. And it's going to look so good on paper, and it's going to be so tempting to want to use it, but it's not actually going to mean anything. Those are stale databases. They were set up one time by a group of programmers. Everything gets plugged in. So what they're going to do is they're not going to break down that ballpark in different permutations. They're not going to break down the fact that Seattle and San Diego and others have made changes. You have to be careful with a lot of that stale stuff. And I tell you, one of the things I do a lot of work with, Greg, I mean, we could see what your database does with it. Almost all of my stuff now is pitcher versus hitter, not pitcher versus team. So that I won't say, well, this is how Clayton Kershaw has done against the Giants. I would say, no, here's how Clayton Kershaw has done against Hunter Pence, so that you're not dealing with information that's stale. Is that the sort of thing that's a part of your thinking as well?
It is, although we don't do a lot of matchups with batters. We do look at them. We keep that because back in the day, you could always count on Bob Gibson winning 20 games and Pete Rose sliding to first base on opening day, and they all play, and they played for the same team. So in a 3-year period, you can't even recognize them. So yeah, a team. We don't do teams. We do ballparks actually more than anything. Some pitchers, and again, ground ball pitchers are going to be deadly, or more deadly at Coors Field, or at Tiger Stadium, or at Yankee Stadium than a fly ball pitcher is going to be. And so it's more to us about the venue than it is the pitcher-player matchups. One of the things that I think I lost my train of thought there. Anyway.
Well, that's good. Jessica just tapped me on the arm. She wants to jump in front of us anyway. Hold on for Jess.
Okay.
Well, you guys have been talking about your personal databases. We were asking the listeners where they go for their stats information. It looks like the majority of them are going to Fangraphs, 60%. Would you advise, less serious bettors that's a site where you could find good information?
I would, at this stage, I probably have everybody starting on Fangraphs, because what Fangraphs has done is, again, now they've gone to the modern metric a little bit more, whereas some of the sites, the Yahoos and the others, will still have wins and losses, earned run average, a lot of the typical stuff. Fangraphs has a lot of ratios out there: walk percentage, strikeout percentage. We're talking about swinging strike percentage. Fangraphs is a good place for that. They dress the stuff up well, but also their databases are easy to sort and to get at. So even someone who doesn't have or isn't tech savvy, Fangraphs was actually designed by someone who wants to use a stat site. This was not a tech person. These were baseball people. So I've got Fangraphs at the top of my list. I know, Greg, you're doing a lot of stuff in-house. When you do have to go out to the web, where are your best sources?
Well, since we update, or I have a database guy, and he's very good. He updates every day, so I'm not sure exactly what he uses. I know that he has mentioned he uses MLB.com. I personally will go to team rankings occasionally just to see if I can try to find maybe something that I'm missing on something, and also Fangraphs as well. Our database is a little bit different because we act, like I said, we have like Verlander is going to have a page. That's his page. He's going to have everything that that you could ever want to know about Verlander, how he performs at this venue, how he performs after a bad performance, how he performs after a good, different levels of the season, how he is in April, May, June, July. That does make a difference. There are probably 15 or 20 go-against pitchers starting around mid-June through the All-Star break because they inevitably, every year, get a tired arm. So we try to go a little bit further than just this is what it is, and we try to read into the numbers just a little bit more.
Oh, that's so critically important. And now I want you to help me outside of your database. One of the big issues that I will have, and I probably everybody listening will have, is when we talk about the bullpens, it's the small sample sizes. That is there a way, or is there an instinct or feel that you have for some of these pitchers where you're ready to grade them stronger? Because some of these middle relievers, you could be out there in July and August, and they're still sitting at 45 or 50 innings. What are the little things you use to make those numbers more effective in your processes?
Well, I don't know if there's any way you really can do that, David. I mean, sometimes you just have to trust your numbers and trust the fact that the pitcher is doing that well. It's always nice to have a better sample size, but sometimes you just can't. I mean, when a rookie's called up from AAA and kicking ass, sometimes you just got to go with it and say, that guy's kicking ass. So, and of course, in that particular case as well, if he hasn't faced anybody in that league, and that's important too, because, it's always important to have a pitcher's going to have a big advantage over a hitter the first time they meet. So when we see a pitcher switch the league, everything just kind of goes back in the wash, but we at least give that guy a little bit more benefit of the doubt if he has success in the other league. But yeah, that's a really tough question. I don't know exactly the best way to answer that, but sometimes you just have to trust your instinct.
And I'd like to hear things about...
Or lay off the game altogether. You don't have to bet it.
That's probably the best piece of advice out there. Is it is a long season, and you don't. Not only do you not have to make the bet, don't have to force the judgment, on someone. So that when you see someone who is erratic or inconsistent, a column I will probably repeat at the beginning of each sports cycle, and I know we'll do it probably next week in baseball. Is I have what I call the drawer, and the drawer is where you stick a team or a pitcher who has been so inconsistent that you can't find the pattern, and you force yourself to have that discipline that, I'm not going to guess at this. I'm going to put him in there until the pattern shows. There may be times where it might look like a line is off a little bit, but if I've got a guy in that drawer, I will just leave him there until I learn a little bit more. It's part of that thing that I guess we all learn when you do it day to day is building that patience, into play, because there's such a temptation. Oh, I've got an idea. I want to go out and play it. Max Scherzer may be one of them.
Absolutely.
As you mentioned, Scherzer changes leagues. It looks like he should get off to a good start in the National League. Problem is, Greg, are we going to have maybe too many people joining us in on that idea?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I was thinking, when we talk about a guy like Max Scherzer switching leagues and having a big edge on the hitters, is this one of those cases where maybe too many people might want to join in and we may have a tough time finding a good number?
Well, probably. I mean, it's hard to say. We'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, he should get off to a good start. But we probably won't. I probably won't be playing him. At least when we can see how he's going to do. I mean, the thing about the National League and the American League is, and here's another thing that is important to know. I know that you already know this. There's a lot more offense in the American League because of the DH, and that's one of the reasons why that division rivals win more often. I mean, the more runs that are scored in a baseball game, the better chance that the underdog is going to win. So we're going to play a lot of dogs in the American League, and we're probably not going to play anything but totals in the National League, or maybe short favorites or very, very short dogs. The National League is such that it's just a different deal altogether. It's amazing how that ninth place hitter in the lineup, if he can't hit, how really that makes a difference in the game, and that's why we have lower totals and lower scoring games. I'm personally going to watch Scherzer for a couple of games, and then we might look at him at that point, but I'm going to watch him right now.
Yes, one of the things that does help when you go over to the National League is not only do the pitchers hit so much weaker than a DH, but you also get so many giveaway outs from that ninth spot in the batter's box that invariably, if there's a runner on base when a pitcher comes up, they're going to bunt. They're going to give away an out. There are going to be so many things that happen. And these are the little things we'll chart and we'll talk about day by day over the course of the season. But I like when you talk about those underdogs in the American League, because even in 2015, starting pitchers carry the brunt of the weight. In the Vegas setting of the numbers, there are these opportunities against bad bullpens later in the game where an underdog can rally back. It is a part of your underdog process looking to go into the bullpens.
Absolutely. In fact, again, lines are based on starting pitchers, and that's great, and that's probably the way it should be. But games are won in the bullpen, or a lot of times, often. In fact, I think the last stat that I saw was that the average starting pitcher goes, I think, 6 2/3 innings. No, I'm sorry, 6 1/3 innings prior to May 20th. After May 20th, the average pitcher goes about 5.9 innings. So the bullpens become even more valuable, more important. And frankly, mid-relievers are much more valuable than closers. I mean, if you consider the fact that managers are paid to manage, if they don't have a good if they don't have a good middle reliever, they can't manage quite as well. So that starting pitcher might end up being out there just a little bit more than usual, and it works kind of together. It's very rare that you have a Cy Young Award winner that also doesn't have a good middle reliever coming in after him, because most pitchers are going to leave the game with runners on base. And frankly, there are more games won in the 6th and 7th innings than there are in any other inning during the course of the game. So I would much rather have a mediocre starter and the best middle relievers in the league than the best pitcher and a mediocre middle reliever corps.
This is a real tangible example. Let's go to the Kansas City Royals last year. And again, a team that the market struggled with when the Royals kicked their game into play. A big part of it is all Kansas City had to do was have the lead at the end of the 7th inning. What Davis was able to do in the 8th, which really at a historical level, but it's when Greg talks about how managers can manage a game. It's not, I got to get the lead in the 9th for my closer. No, if I have the lead after 7, that 8th inning becomes ours. And now what we're starting to see happen is he's not just looking for that closer, but looking for that designated 8th inning guy now. I know that's something that's going to be a big part of my philosophy. Do we get to the point, Greg, where maybe there are now 3 bullpen tiers? There's middle relief, setup, and closer, where now that setup guy starts to carry more weight in our handicapping?
I think that it does. Most, I guess it's debatable and people will debate me when I say that most teams have at least a reasonably good closer, but it's really those mid relievers that make a difference. And a big key is that you absolutely positively have to know if your middle relievers are going to be available. And that's why we do and we will be doing some 5-inning games as well, because in some cases we know that the middle relievers are way overworked. And so they're probably not going to be available the next day, and therefore the manager is not going to be able to manage the way he wants to do it, and then that's advantage toward the other team. So, like I said, most closers, if you give them the ball in a 1 or 2 run lead, they're going to hang on to get it most of the time. But they've got to have that lead first, and that is obtained during the course of the game, and often that lead changes hands in the 7th and 8th when the middle reliever fails.
Well, there's a lot of talking about pitching, on the webinar so far today. In terms of offense, in your database, are there any particular keys that you're isolating or looking for that might not be common for the people listening in?
Well, like I said, we do mostly pitching, but I will say this much. There's a few things that we look at when a team is shut out, gets no runs. They generally come back and have a better offensive performance in the next game. What we do look at is again, venues. There are some teams that, and I don't have that stat in front of me, but there are some teams that are better built for a park that they're visiting than their own home park. The Dodgers last year, a good example, and really they've been a good example for the last few years. They do very well at Colorado because they hit a lot of fly balls basically, and so they're suited for that park. So when the Dodgers are at Colorado, we're going to once again look toward the Dodgers, and we're going to look toward an over if the numbers right.
That's something that I think is important for people to realize when you look at how teams perform home and away. Like as you talked about the Dodgers hitting, and one of the things I think gets lost a lot in baseball handicapping are wins and losses of a measurement. So someone will say, well, they're 24-16 on the road, therefore they're a good road team. No, you don't know if it was the hitters hitting better on the road, if it was the pitchers getting the job done on the road. And I know one of the things we will isolate on in terms of teams being on streaks, because baseball bettors probably love streaks more than bettors in any other sport. They want to ride the hot team, go against the cold team. I break everything down into two results. So I will almost never say, well, the Dodgers have won 8 in a row. I'll say, well, the Dodgers have averaged 4.8 runs per 9 over those 8 games. It's possible you can go on an 8-game winning streak and the team actually not playing well at all if the pitching is real hot. And sometimes when you talk about those underdogs in the high-scoring games, you can get a team out there losing 6 or 7 games in a row where they're actually hitting the ball well, but the pitching isn't good enough. Is that the sort of thing you're looking for in your cycles too? That not just whether a team's winning or losing, but how they're winning or losing?
Absolutely, and that's why looking at box scores and determining how they're winning is much more important. If they're getting really good, I look at one of my most important stats that I look at is again, and we're back to the bullpen. The bullpen. If your bullpen is knocking down a 1 ERA and a whip of 10-7 over a course of the last 10 games, you've got a pretty good shot at winning. All you have to do is score a few runs, and your starting pitcher put in an average 5 or 6 innings, and you're probably going to win the game. So if a bullpen is doing well, number one, if they're doing well, they're probably throwing less pitches, so they're probably more rested. And your team is always in a better position to win because they know that if they ever do get the lead, that they are probably going to maintain that lead. So to me, bullpens are very, very, very important in that respect. Of course, winning 8 games in a row, that's super cool. I mean, I've lost 8 games in a row before, so I understand how that works. But it's a small sample size. You're right. You can win 8 games in a row and not be actually playing your best baseball of the year on another streak where you're 5-3 and you're playing better baseball. It's just the way it is.
And most of some of these short-term statistics we'll talk about over the course of the summer. One of the just simple ones, left on base when you're measuring a team. And baseball's got a lot of geometry to it. A weak ground ball, if it's right up the middle, is a hit. A screaming line drive, if it goes right at a glove, gets caught. Sometimes geometry impacts short-term cycles. And if we see a team hitting the ball well, getting a lot of runners on base, but just not getting the runs around to score, you get that sneaky value out there. And it's one thing I actually like to look for inside of a series. If one team is out hitting or outplaying the other, but not getting the scoreboard result. And a lot of times, and I'll talk to Eric Strasser, a guy who's going to appear in the Point Blank Baseball column a lot. he'll say, if one team has 7 or 8 more total bases than the opponent but loses the game, he'll tend to maybe want to look at that team the next night. We know that people are comfortable with stats in football. Say, well, this team won 28-20, but they outgained the other side. What we don't see a lot of in baseball is that same thing, that idea of yardage as a part of the process. I'm going to write about that a lot. Total bases can be the yardage equation, inside of baseball games. 2 questions on this. One, is that something that is a part of your database as well? And also the last part, defense. And we all know it's important, and I've had a lot of people asking me questions about it, and it is still so damn hard to measure. And yes, I said damn, Jessica, because I know you say worse things. In terms of measuring defense, are there any little keys that you've been able to find through the years?
Well, actually not. Defense is important, but it's very, very difficult to measure other than, fielding percentage, which is, and the way that I set up, and we actually do power rankings, but the power rankings are based on a little bit of everything, including the manager, including the defense, including the bullpen, including the overall hitting, including how well a team plays at home. There are certain teams that just are dominant at home and can't do anything on the road, and vice versa. And so it all comes together, but it's more of a subjective thing on the defense. You can look at the ratings and determine what those are, but I'm not sure exactly if that has a lot of determination as to what we do. Maybe it's something we should do, but it's something we don't.
Well, if you figure it out, let me know, because one of the things I'll write about in an early baseball column is the frustration of defense, that I've got access to pretty good team defensive ratings. Now, the last couple of years, you've got a lot of the new websites trying to do individual defensive player ratings, and you end up wanting to pull your hair out because you look at them and they're so drastically different from each other. So you're going to hear a lot of phrases out there: zone rating, ultimate zone rating. And it's these people literally sitting there watching games and trying to chart, well, should this center fielder have got to this ball? And it's stuff that we would love if they could get it to where we could trust it. And unfortunately, boy, day in and day out, the differences from those various sites tell me that I can't use the information yet. And I'd love to be able to. Now, I'll put something in point blank a lot, and it's PADE. It's Park Adjusted Defensive Efficiency. It's a nice number. It tells you how good the team defense is with the ballpark removed. There's a way of neutralizing the park so that you're just measuring the defense itself. That's a good number. It just doesn't tell me if it's the shortstop or second baseman who's the key. A lot of this for ground ball pitchers and fly ball pitchers is just going to be pure common sense as to whether we think the infield defense is going to be good enough or not. We saw a great example of that last year. We talked about how good Kansas City's bullpen was that the markets didn't appreciate. One of the big collapses last year, Oakland fell down when the middle of that infield got injured. Pitchers who needed those infielders behind them weren't making the plays anymore. They fell down a little bit. These are things we're going to talk about every day, but first Jessica's going to want to talk a little bit. She's going to open the floor up for a little question and answer, so that questions that you have for me, for Greg Shaker, and even if you have a question for Jessica, I think it's going to be time to fire away.
If your question is about baseball, all I can say is look in the forums and see that we are running a contest where you can tell me why I should like baseball, because I don't know much about it. However, it seems our audience has much more savvy questions in mind. We have one that came in that asks, when looking at weather factors, at what point does the humidity percentage become conducive for an overplay, and do you take it into consideration?
I do look at weather. I do not. I'm of the opinion. I used to actually do the humidity, and I do glance at it, but it's not something that factors a lot into what I do. It kind of goes into the category of TMI. You have to try to simplify things as much as you can. And that's one of the things that, we go to a couple of weather sites, and I do notice, what the humidity is, and it is to some extent important to me, but it's not as important as the other factors, which basically are the situation, the pitchers at those venues, and the visiting team at that venue, and whether or not they are more suited or less suited for that park. So I don't tend to use that very much.
Yeah, I think what we can add on humidity, because there are studies out there that will talk about the impact of it. I tell you where humidity does, though, make a difference in totals. Now, it can sound like it was the humidity causing the ball to travel better. Humidity does two things. One is it wears pitchers down a little bit more, but it also keeps the hitters looser. And one of the things we're going to see right off the get-go next week, a lot of these cold days in the northern ballparks where guys warming up in Florida and Arizona all of a sudden get sent to Chicago and Boston in April. It's hard to hit in April because you're in a dugout that's cold. When you go out to, unless you're the first batter of the inning, the pitcher is more loose than you are. If you're the second or third batter, you're walking up to the plate cold. That pitcher is already loose. He's already got his body temperature where he wants it. When you get into that midsummer humidity, the hitters stay loose the entire time. When it's warm in the dugout, it's so much easier to walk right out there to the plate. So, yeah, it is a factor in games. I just don't know if there's a formula where we say, well, the relative humidity is over 75%. That means this. I haven't been able to see anyone get that precise with it yet.
I guess that's sort of my point. I mean, we do take into the fact that if it's 96 degrees and the humidity is 70%, that, the starting pitchers are not going to go as long as they normally would. But, I think most people are looking for some way of determining whether or not the ball is going to travel an extra 10 feet or so at 70%. And that's just something we don't do. I'm not saying that's not viable. It's not something that we do. But, yeah, certainly cold weather is conducive to unders, although we're going to see lower numbers posted by odds makers, during the cold game. So it's still about the number and whether or not, what you have is higher or lower than what they post.
Yeah, I think the other thing is once we get this posted on the web, if there are any follow-up questions that come out of anyone having listened to the webinar, we will go into the forum to answer them. So this will be a back and forth that will continue. Greg, this has actually been a lot of fun. I haven't been to Memphis in quite some time, but you jogged some memories, back through me. I assume, though, Memphis is one of these cities that's pretty timeless. Memphis is not going to change that much through the years, is it?
It has not changed at all. You can still see Elvis right down there on Union. Of course, sometimes that's me because I'm an Elvis impersonator as well.
What? Okay, that's the best thing I've heard all webinar. You guys have given some good info, but that's
you liked Elvis,
pretty cool. Well, I was my one question.
I'm a great little dancer too. Okay.
My question for you, being a Memphis person, is Rendezvous the best barbecue place, or do you have a secret restaurant you want to tip us off?
A lot of people like Rendezvous, and it's different. The thing about Rendezvous is that it's really not Memphis barbecue, but it is good.
Thank you. Oh, Greg, we're going to get along great.
Yeah, well, and neither my wife nor I, we actually live about a block from Rendezvous, but I don't believe we've been there for about a couple of years. So I think Central Barbecue is the best one.
I just got to do one thing to interject because I think I know where Jess might be going with this. Meat that is cooked properly and seasoned properly doesn't require sauce, and that's when I think of Rendezvous, I think of we're going to cook it properly. We've got this dry rub thing pretty much figured out by now. We don't need to slop anything on it afterwards. That's probably going to bother you, but I just had to get that out there.
I think cut him off before he was going to say Germantown Commissary is really the place to go.
Absolutely. That's absolutely my favorite one, Germantown Commissary. Yeah.
Me too.
But David, you're right. I mean, there are wet people and there are dry people. I kind of like a little bit of both. I actually put a little sauce on the side, so occasionally I'll dip But yeah, I like the taste of the meat. I actually have about an 8-pound Boston butt on my kitchen counter right now. It was given to me this morning.
You know, there is something called dry ice
we
that's
every
out
day.
there. And you could pack some of that up after you've smoked it and send it right to us. You can send it right. Actually, don't send it to the pregame office because RJ Bell will probably get to it first. Maybe have you send it right to Jessica's house. But before anybody writes in, I don't want to be accused of only being a dry. I love both. There is certainly a place for both. But it's rendezvous over so many years working in it. And that's when things get good, is when someone does the same thing their way for a long time. You do get successful, just like Greg Shaker doing the same thing with his baseball databases. You understand the seasoning of your process, and boy, that does make a difference, doesn't it?
It does. It feels good to know that baseball starts in a few days, and you're ready. You know, because everything is done. We're ready to go.
All right, guys, if you want to get ready for baseball season, you can get 25% off of any of Greg's packages on pregame.com using the code SHAKER25. I think that's right.
Shaker25.
Or Shaker Webinar 25. I'm sorry, Shaker Webinar 25.
I don't like that as much.
It's a little wordier, but Shaker Webinar 25. You can also follow Greg on Twitter at Greg Shaker, SHAKER. And, you know, Greg's in the forums as well. So be sure to take advantage of all of those things as you get ready for baseball season. And in the meantime, Greg, thanks so much for your barbecue insight, your baseball insight, and an interesting hour of conversation on betting.
Well, thank you, Jess, and you too, David.
Good luck to you, Greg. And like I said, if you've got any of that butt left over, send it on out here. As something Jessica has painfully been finding out, Las Vegas is not a good barbecue city yet, and probably not going to be there anytime soon.
Yeah, send help, anyone.
Really sad.
I got to get back to Memphis, get some Germantown commissary. In the meantime, thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we'll keep you posted on when our next webinar is going to happen. Have a good afternoon.